Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 20th and tonight's movie is The Substance. This is a body horror movie from last year starring Demi Moore. It's actually one that I was able to hear about organically. I didn't need to find this while looking for the movies to watch for Horror Nights. As far as I can tell, it's about this actress or model who starts entering a more mature part of her life, and she takes something that allows her to either become younger or look younger. And obviously, there's a lot of commentary in this about the beauty standards that women face in modern society, specifically when it comes to aging. I feel like that was probably worse like 10 or 20 years ago than it is now, because nowadays there is a very strong demand and market for mature women. But on the other hand, just the fact that they're called mature women instead of just like women is probably part of the problem. There might also be some element of like the biological clock being examined in this movie. And from the trailer, I also definitely got some hints about this being a sort of parallel to drug addiction, or even a dependence on things like cosmetic surgeries. This is a body horror movie, so I am very much prepared for this to be disgusting. But just how gross it will be is yet to be seen. This is also one of the longest movies of this horror night. It's almost 2.5 hours, so I better just get started. I don't know if I've ever felt more confused by a movie than I was by this. First of all, it is exponentially more disgusting than I was expecting. And the tone went from comedy to horror and then back to comedy. Ultimately, I think, and I know how crazy this sounds, I would be able to take this movie more seriously if they just made it a comedy. Because as is, it is one of the most disjointed horror movies I've ever seen. There's a lot of good things in it, but unfortunately, I don't think it worked. I'm gonna give The Substance a 5 out of 10. This movie was written and directed by the French director Coraline Farjat. And again, French people, they're built differently. They do not make normal movies. And I'm not just talking about the subject matter, the structure and like the format of this movie is so bizarre to me. Like, the first third is this satirical comedy that's, like, way too heavy-handed. Like, I'd have to imagine it was meant to be intentionally heavy-handed. And then, like, for 50% after that, it's this, like, psychological body horror. And then for, like, the last 20 minutes, it's some ridiculous B-movie stuff. It just hit me right now. This movie is just like Beau is Afraid. It's this super talented filmmaker making this, like, passion project, and I'm watching it, and by the end of it I was just like, what the hell was that? The two leads in this movie are Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley, and they both do great. In fact, Demi Moore, in her very long and illustrious career as an actress, got her first ever Academy Award nomination for her role in The Substance. Demi Moore plays Elizabeth Sparkle, who used to be an actress, and in her older years is doing like aerobics workout tapes. And I have to say, Demi Moore is 62. In this movie, she looks like she's in her 40s. I don't know what kind of, like, diet and skincare routine or cosmetic surgeries or deals with Satan she did in order to pull that off, but yeah, she looks significantly younger than she is. They had to make Elizabeth Starr turn 50 in the movie. The Substance itself does not work at all like how I was expecting. I was thinking like a sort of like transformation, like a werewolf or something. But no, it's literally two different people. Except it's not. It's actually two different bodies and one consciousness going back and forth between the two of them. And the younger version, who calls herself Sue, literally came out of Elizabeth's back like she's being born. One thing I realized while watching The Substance is that I'm pretty sure this is sort of meant to be like a modernized Jekyll and Hyde. One thing about the original story that's often lost or people don't even know is the fact that it's not like Jekyll and Hyde are two different people, they're one person. And it's more like the inhibitions go down when Dr. Jekyll becomes Hyde. One thing that keeps happening in this movie is that Sue and Elizabeth keep acting like the other one is a different person, and they grow to hate each other. But they also both need each other, and that's where a lot of the problems start. There really isn't much else I want to say about The Substance without going into spoilers. I think the tone was all over the place. To me, it felt like it was trying to be both a horror movie and a comedy at the same time, and in the process ended up failing at both of those things. even though being a horror movie that's also a comedy is extremely doable. I understand what it's going for, mostly, but I also don't understand the way that they chose to deliver it. I'm sure a lot of other people could get a lot more meaning from this movie than I did, but I'm probably not the target audience for this type of movie. Still, this is my review, and ultimately, I didn't really get the substance. And now I want to talk about some spoilers, because there are a lot of them. The main source of conflict in this movie is the fact that the instructions that Elizabeth is given when she gets the substance is that you spend 7 days in your regular body and then 7 days in your youthful body, and you have to switch every 7 days. And the new body is not stable on its own. For some reason, the old body, the original body, has like this type of fluid you can draw out of its back by doing like a spinal tap. And you take 1 dose a day when you're in the younger body. But of course, there comes a point where Sue doesn't want to go back to the old body and just take some more spinal fluid. The problem is when you take too much at once, that literally starts sucking out the life of the original body. It starts out with 1 finger looking like it belongs to a corpse, and then it becomes more and more of the body. And by the end of it, she's completely unrecognizable. It's like Nosferatu. She basically turns into this gargoyle witch. So obviously, this is the main reason why Elizabeth hates Sue, or why Elizabeth hates herself when she's in the younger body. For pretty much the entire movie, once this started happening, I was waiting for Elizabeth to try to take, like, stabilizer fluid from Sue's body, because maybe that would reverse some of the effects, but they never went that direction, and I don't know why. I think that would have been interesting. And I will say, I think my favorite part of the entire movie was one part where it was like a lot of life had been taken away from Elizabeth, and she was watching Sue on this late night talk show, and she is really mad and really bitter. And she starts talking to herself and mocking Sue. And when I was watching that, I was thinking, like, I can actually tell that Demi Moore is having a lot of fun right now. The movie reaches a boiling point when it reaches, I think, a 3-month period of all Sue just, like, continuously pulling the life juice out of Elizabeth's body until there's literally nothing left. It's dried up. And the new body is not stable. It will fall apart, and the only option she has left is to switch back, and at this point, Elizabeth just looks like the Crypt Keeper. So after that, Elizabeth decides to just get off this drug, stop using the substance, and she actually, like, gets the syringe full of the termination fluid, which is like a lethal injection. But right as she does it, she gets cold feet and stops because she still really likes being young and pretty again. So then she tries to get back inside the body of Sue, and it somehow ends up with, like, both of them being sentient at the same time, and Sue goes into this blinding rage and murders Elizabeth with her bare hands. Just in time for her biggest gig, this New Year's Eve show, except she doesn't have any more stabilizer fluid, and the body is not stable. Her teeth start falling out, her ear falls off, her nails come off. And then she does something exceptionally desperate. She goes back to the house and gets more of that activator, which was like the original drug that started all of this. And I wondered from the very beginning, why did they give you so much extra? It's meant to be one-time use. And ultimately, they did that so they could have this moment at the end of the movie. There's, like, another birthing from the back moment. And there was a moment, it was like a POV of the newly reborn body. And I paused the movie and I thought to myself, okay, there's going to be a shot where we see the new body in the mirror. What is this going to look like? It wouldn't be a child because that's highly inappropriate in this context. But, like, what would it be? I don't even know what I was expecting, but what I got was ridiculous, actually. It is this blobby, deformed, homunculus abomination of the two women, and also just a bunch of other body parts in random places. And that's when this movie turned into a B movie. It is just over-the-top ridiculous, and I couldn't take any of it seriously. And I don't even know if I was supposed to be taking it seriously. But then she goes back to the New Year's Eve show, and obviously everyone's horrified, but then her body just, like, starts exploding and, like, spurting blood everywhere. There's a point where her eye opens and her eye gives birth to a boob. So it just gets crazier and crazier and sillier, and it all culminates with the body just falling to the ground and breaking. And then this one part that had Elizabeth's face on it literally like crawls away like an amoeba. And then it goes to the Hollywood star that you saw at the very beginning of the movie, and then she just dies, and then the movie ends. As I said before, I feel like this almost would have been better as a comedy, like a Freaky Friday style comedy. But that also would have ultimately ended up being a very different movie than what The Substance is. And Caroline Fargeau was very insistent on not making any changes to her vision. She actually lost distribution rights with Universal because they wanted to make changes to the final cut. And I can respect that, being so firm in wanting to make the movie that you imagine that you're willing to actually lose the resources that you gained. And while I ultimately didn't like the final product, I'm also not really who it's for. And it's definitely not a movie I'm going to forget anytime soon. I don't think I can forget some of the things I saw. I was just confused by The Substance, and there really isn't a better way to put that. Alright, thank you for listening. I'll see you tomorrow.